Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Tomorrow is election day for Sri Lanka, and we are going to take a look at the main candidates, what do they stand for, and how Sri Lanka is looking at these candidates. And there may be a surprise or two for you to share with us all this information. And also, we're going to be talking about Gaza, Israel's how Israel is approaching on solving Gaza right now, and I'm sure Hezbollah or Lebanon will not be far behind. All this and more. Let's get it from Savio Rodrigues. Before that, please like this video. Savio, namaskar. Welcome to PGurus channel. How are you?
Thank you, Sree, for inviting me once again. Sri Lanka goes to polls.
Floor is yours. Tomorrow. Floor is yours. Yeah.
Sri Lanka goes to polls tomorrow, but I must say that it is going to be the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, that might end up being in control of the Sri Lankan government post the elections. Now, if you put up the slide of the candidates, I'll explain to you what exactly I'm talking about. So, Anura Kumara Dissanayake is a very, very powerful leader, a young leader that is actually growing from strength to strength over the last several months. I would say from January onwards, he's really making inroads. Now, A.K. Dissanayake, as he is called, is a known China supporter, a very known China supporter. The policies of his predecessor was also pro-China. So, Dissanayake, in my opinion, is like Dr. Mohammad Muizzu of the Maldives. Mohammad Muizzu's predecessor was Yamin. Yamin was pro-China. In much the same way, Disanayake's predecessor was pro-China, and Dissanayake himself and his political party are pro-China. The Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, which is working in Sri Lanka right now, becomes a future threat to India if they come back, if they win this election. They don't come back, but they win this election. Then what you're going to have is you have Bangladesh, that is, again, a part of the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, and you have CIA playing its own games out there. You have Pakistan, again, which is a Sino-Wahhabi left lobby with CIA playing its games. You have Maldives, which is a hardcore Sino-Wahhabi left lobby over there as well. And then you have Nepal, you have Sri Lanka. India is being surrounded by the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, and you also have CIA's interest to break the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby and create its own CIA-Wahhabi left lobby. And that is the complexity of the Sri Lanka elections for us as India. Now, if you look at the opinion polls that are coming out in Sri Lanka, you have Dissanayake, who's number 1. You have Premadasa, who's at number 2. You have the current incumbent president, that is Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is number 3. And then you have the 4th one, that is Mahinda Rajapakse's son, Namal Rajapakse, who's number 4. Now, he's only got about 2 to 3%. Ranil Wickremesinghe is actually facing a lot of anti-incumbency. And the people have lost faith in Ranil Wickremesinghe. And that is the reason why they have moved all their focus to Dissanayake. And Dissanayake seemed to have benefited the most from the complexities at a ground level. And they have realized, or rather he has been communicating to them, that the only way to get out of their socio-economic conundrum is by being friends with China and having a pretty okay relationship with India, which is why in February, Dissanayake met up with Modi, Ajit Doval, and Jaishankar in India, the NPP and representatives of the NPP along with Dissanayake. The Indian government at that stage itself would have realized that this is a growing political power in India, in Sri Lanka, and it's necessary for India to share a good relation with them. Ranil Wickremesinghe, on the other hand, believes that he should have always got Indian support, but India is creating and doing its own, multi-layered relationships across the world, particularly in this region. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it's a matter of time to see how those decisions work. For example, with Maldives, everybody knows that Maldives come to the table. They are now in talks with India. They are asking for India to help them, and India will continue to help them. And that is why India at some point of time will ensure that the money given to them, the debt that is rising with Maldives, is neutralized and they come to some socio-economic platform. The same thing is going to happen with Sri Lanka. I believe whichever government comes in place, and right now it's looking like Dissanayake is going to come and become the president, India is going to do exactly the Maldivian strategy as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. Now, these Sino-Wahhabi left political parties are only there to ensure that India supports them financially, and that is their interest. They have no interest other than that as far as India is concerned. India pulls its hand out as far as money is concerned, they will turn against India in a jiffy. They are so well entrenched with China. China has been pumping so much of money into Sri Lanka. And they believe that they have to take Sri Lanka away from India, so that if you look at the Indian Ocean region, you look at the pearl of the Indian Ocean that they want to create, they want to control primarily the ports. They want to control the seas around the area. They want to control the land, and that's China's focus. China's naval prowess has improved over the last 10 years incredibly. It is so minute, so stealth, that we are not able to gauge the depth of what China's naval strength is. And therefore, if you see, they've got roughly about 18 ports within this region itself. An outpost, that they call it. They don't call it, the military outpost. They just call it an outpost. But in all actuality, it is a military outpost. And that is the fear I have if Dissanayake wins. Because Dissanayake is nothing but a puppet in the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby's hand. He's another Dr. Muizu. And we are going to see an increase in Islamic radicalism in Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much. I just want to clarify a few things for our viewers. Can we have the slide deck, please? Same slide that it's right now resting on, 36% vote. Can we just show that slide, please? Yeah. So viewers, this is for a presidential election of Sri Lanka, who is going to be the president, and then there will be parliamentary election. But president is the most important executive in Sri Lankan system of governance. Now, what my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Savio, the way the voter votes for the president is they have three preferences: my top choice, my second most choice, my third choice. So what happens then is, if the top choice is not getting more than 50.1% vote, or it has to be more than 50%, let me put it that way, exact number doesn't matter. So then what happens is they go and look at the second preference, and from the second preference, who gets the highest, that person wins. So more likely than not, whatever we are presenting here is probably what is going to end up being. And then once Dissanayake wins the presidential election, you can assume that he will probably do well in the subsequent parliamentary elections also, gaining perhaps a majority of the seats or close to that. We have to assume that same numbers will happen. So in terms of election, what has happened here is China, it appears to me, Savio, I'll come to my question. I just wanted to explain this to our viewers. China has invested for the long run here. They figured that they probably did too much in Hambantota by resting Hambantota port for 99 years. Now they are trying to say, okay, let's take a step back, but we still hold the chain. You can always yank the chain. This is something that is used in US parlance. You can always, somebody's chained and you can always yank the chain whenever you feel like the person is getting outside the line that is drawn around him. So Is this correct? What do you think?
You're absolutely right. It is completely going to be China's control in Sri Lanka if Dissanayake becomes the president. That's what I'm saying. And if you look at what China's been doing across the Indian subcontinent, you will realize that the Chinese, the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby that I keep talking about, is really the main player in this region. See, everybody looks at the US, and yes, the US has its own nuances and its own games, but the real silent mover, the dragon, is really moving silently and blowing fire when it requires to blow fire. It's made Africa in debt to China. You have many countries in the Indian subcontinent that is in debt to China. US itself is in debt to China. And that is how the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby works. Even in India, for that matter, it is the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby that gains major traction as far as the kind of problems that India is facing. You don't see it so blatant, but it does exist. So when you have organizations like the NED, which is the US CIA sister concern, you also have the ILD of CCP that is being very aggressive. And on your show sometime back, I very clearly stated that you have roughly about 40,000 Chinese agents working in India, working in different fields. In fact, if you look at something as mundane as the loans that China has been giving out through these China front companies, you will realize that some of the people who were caught in some of the loan scams were actually linked to PLA China. They positioned themselves interestingly as people from Manipur, but when the investigations went deep into it, the person who represented himself like being somebody from Manipur and even got an Aadhaar card based out of Manipur and a ration card and various other things was actually a PLA agent from China.
Thank you so much. And see, one other corollary here, what he said, what Savio said, I'll pick up on that. Viewers, there was a time when Vatican Bank said that we will have to reveal who our biggest bank account holders are. And surprise, surprise, the Mainos were one of the biggest. And it is believed that they transferred all their wealth to guess what? Guess where? Macau. Into the banks in Macau, which is a Chinese-run territory. Just like Hong Kong, Macau is now wholly owned by China, and that is where much of the gambling, casino, all the BS happens there. So when you think of anything that the India Alliance thinks or enacts, it is all because of this. There is a force behind. Unfortunately, in this case, both US and China are uniting to keep India down. We have been saying this for a long time. As a US citizen, I'm concerned about the underhanded tactics that the United States is using. I mean, you cannot from this side of the mouth say we want democracy and from this side saying, but we prefer dictatorship. Because that's exactly what I'm hearing in Bangladesh. Just to take a small segue. In Bangladesh, the army is systematically taking up ownership at every chowki. Chowki is police outpost. So soon what you are going to have is this advisor out and a member of the army becoming what I would call MLA, martial law administrator, or president, whatever, it doesn't matter. That is the person that the US will try to manipulate. This is where the Bangladesh appears to be headed. I'll give you we'll have a separate segment on that when Savio has some time. But today that's where the indications are. Savio, if you want to add something to that, and then we can go on to the next topic, which is Israel and Gaza.
Yep, I think what we are looking at is playbook CIA operation as far as Bangladesh is concerned. But let me get even more deeper. You see, we talk about the deep state, but deep state is not governments. Deep states are representatives of governments and business lobbies and military weapon lobbies that want to come together to ensure that they have economic benefits. So the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby is actually the real deep state. Anyone connected to it in some form, including the CIA, will be a part of the deep state, and that's the interest that they have. Take US, for example. Everyone is talking about the likelihood of Trump winning, and I am saying Trump is not going to win the elections. And I'll tell you the reason why he's not going to win the elections. Simply because if you take the official figure that the US government has put out, you've got 8 million illegal immigrants that have been legitimized by the US government, by the Biden administration, and interestingly, they have used the church and the Islamic lobby to ensure that the US government funds it so that the money could reach to those NGOs that are looking after these illegal immigrants that have been brought in. So essentially, what you see happening is a Bengal-like situation in the US.
Yes, yes,
They are
yes.
not going to rely on the US votes. They are going to rely on the illegal immigrants' votes that have been made legal. That is why you are seeing so many cases in certain states where you are finding voters that are dead who are still being considered to be voters. You are seeing situation where there are voters that don't exist but are existing. And it is something very similar to what you see in India. That is something unheard of as far as America is concerned. So you have and why is it that they don't want Trump? They don't want Trump because your Trump is your guy who goes after the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby. He went after China during the COVID crisis. He's got his bent of mind, which is different from the Democrats. His bent of mind is even not like the Republicans. Trump has his own mind and deals with things in his own wacky way. And that is the problem. And when you look at the situation that is happening in America, then you come to the situation that is happening between Israel and Lebanon, between Israel and Palestine in Gaza, between Israel and Iran. Now, what happened on October 7th? The dastardly terror act on October 7th needed a response. And that is exactly what Netanyahu has done. However, what has happened, even including this pager attack, which was brilliant, the fact of the matter is, what is the end game? And that is where the conundrum starts. Because Netanyahu, in all his wisdom and all his interest, is dealing with Hamas, the body. But Hamas, the body, can die and another body can take over. Because Hamas is one part of the problem. The problem is Islamic radicalism. And Islamic radicalism is an ideology. And to kill an ideology, you would have to actually kill those in the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby that have allowed for the Islamic radicalism ideology to spread in many parts of the world. And that has not happened. So you will continue to see the war escalating, ceasefires happening, but the war continuing. And whether that helps the people of Israel at large is a different question altogether. So there is at this point of time no end game in sight unless somebody is able to bring all of them together to say, listen, we had the wonderful aspect of the Abraham Accords that saw Arab nations sign up with Israel. However, now, after the Lebanon incident, Saudi Arabia has decided to back off and extend its support fully to Palestine. So the end game is a conundrum, and it's a conundrum that every nation that does not want a war in the Middle East to happen needs to sit down together and work at it. But it's not going to be easy because you have to deal with terrorism. And there is no other way of dealing with terrorism rather than eradicating terrorism. But eradicating an ideology is not going to be easy. For that, you have to eradicate Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, indeed. And for specifically for the Gaza solution, I'm hearing there is a plan by Israel to relocate much of the population of Gaza to somewhere far away from the land where it is now. So tunnels cannot be thought of. And at the same time, Israel can invest in bringing up some sort of a city, Gaza city, if you will, for a lack of a better word, just at the tip of where Red Sea and the Hormuz Strait meet in the Sinai Peninsula, because they need water, sea water to desalinate. See, they're thinking through in a humanitarian manner. Yeah, we want to move these people. We want to move them a little bit farther away so they can't just easily, indulge in mischief. At the same time, we want to make sure that they cannot again start building tunnels, because whatever was the dispensation from 2007 to 2023, 16 years, they have completely abused that money that came in form of cement, steel, and everything. And now, at least they want to move them out. I don't know how realistic that is, because Egypt owes a lot of money to Israel. So this is the thing. Egypt, okay, we will excuse some of your debt. In exchange, you give us back Sinai that we gave you, and this is what we are going to do with it. Far away from Egypt, far away from Israel. They have a place to live, and it's up to them how they want to conduct their life. Something like that. That could also be a two-state solution. Your thoughts?
See, the problem with Palestine and the Hamas, okay? If you go back into the last conflict that Israel had with Hamas, then the US and Israel and certain other lobbies decided to go about a program of de-radicalization in Gaza. The de-radicalization process in Gaza was about creating a situation where there is socio-economic welfare that translates to the people on the ground. And that was working very, very well till the time you had October 7th. That happened. The reason why October 7th happened is because the very same ideology of de-radicalization did not work. De-radicalization is not going to work because de-radicalization is an ideological problem. And to deal with an ideological problem, now let's look at Hamas as an organization, right? Everybody was talking about Palestine being poor, they needed socio-economic welfare, but please look at the personal wealth of the Hamas leaders. Look at the personal wealth of everybody within Hamas and not the young Palestinian person on the ground. I have been to Ramallah. I know the aspirations of some of the people who are Palestinian in nature and who want to have a socio-economic growth. But Hamas had all the money. Hamas was controlling all the money from different lobbies. Did the people benefit? Hamas came in as a political option. They turned into focusing more on terrorism. Hamas was controlling Gaza, sitting out of Qatar. And that is the problem of this concept that people have, that you can actually solve radicalization by the process of de-radicalization. It's not going to happen. And that is why I'm saying that's the conundrum. Because you cannot take away the radicalized mindset. So with more and more attacks on, say, the Hezbollahs or the Hamas, you might eradicate the top lot of their leaders. The next lot are ready to take on. So you have to deal with it. The world must come together to deal with it in a more pragmatic manner. While socio-economic welfare is one of the manner, the other manner is to deal with what is the source of the Islamic radicalism itself. You take a guy like Mohammed bin Salman, for example, and I'm saying this with all absolute conviction, a man like Mohammed bin Salman who wants to reform Saudi Arabia. I am telling you on your show, that man's life is in danger, is in serious threat from the same Sino-Wahhabi left lobby. He himself has made a statement of that nature. And that is the nature. So they don't want any form of de-radicalization. They want radicalization to continue. So you have to deal with it. Iran, on the other hand, might want to show Israel that they are really tough. But Iran knows that its people are not doing very well. So any war does not benefit Iran at this point of time, does not benefit Lebanon as well. So I'm glad that the Israel's pager incident happened. It has sent fear into the hearts of the Hezbollah, the Hamas, as well as Iran. But instead of being aggressive and trying to get into an all-out war in the region to destabilize the entire region to prove that you are better than Israel, why not come together and put your heads and work towards socio-economic development rather than this? But they won't, because that's the ideology, that's the mindset. Right now, my biggest fear is for Mohammed bin Salman. He is a man who can bring about absolute radical changes to this very same radicalized lobby. But when he gets too close, I am telling you that man's life is in danger.
Yes, indeed. And we'll be following this situation also very closely. We have a few questions for you, Savio, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you. Manoj Soma wants to know, Namaskaram Andi, is it true that Syrian Christians are openly supporting Kerala Story movie in churches of Kerala and now they are supporting BJP? Is it true? Please throw some light on this.
Well, to be absolutely and brutally honest, it was the Syro-Malabar Church in Kerala and the bishops of the Syro-Malabar Church in Kerala that actually raised the issue of love jihad. It was not the Hindu groups in Kerala. It was the bishop who raised the issue of love jihad, where he had come out during a church sermon, actually spoke about the impact and the effect of love jihad on Christian girls and boys. And therefore, they have decided, and wisely, to rather align with the BJP rather than with this particular lobby, because they are finding that the radicalism is actually percolating to their young and the youth in that congregation. And it's something that has scared them. They had estimated somewhere around 6,000 Christians being victims of love jihad in Kerala. And that is something that they were very worried about. And it is a reality.
Next one, please. Shankaracharya ji wants to know, Iyer ji, you exposed Raga meeting anti-Hindus in USA, but why are you silent when Klaus Schwab met NDA government? This guy is more powerful than Soros and right hand to Rockefeller and also anti-India. Well, anyone can meet anybody. Jaipuri Shankaracharya ji, please understand this. Anyone can meet anybody. It's not just that. It is when you persistently go and meet with people who are anti-India, anti-Hindu. That's where the warning signs go off. And they continue to do that. Why? Just do the math for yourself. You will understand what I'm talking about. This is not a question. I mean, if Savio wants to add to it, feel free. Savio, this is just electoral math. That's all there is. I see the way I see it.
You know, I believe that a lot of people around the world have a huge issue as far as Hindus are concerned, and the resurgence of Sanatana Dharma in India and in other parts of the Indian subcontinent. They have a problem with that because they see a resurgence and a renaissance happening. And that is what they want to break. If you look at even something as shockingly disturbing as the Tirupati Laddus, I mean, as an Indian Christian, I have no words. I mean, it's almost heart-wrenchingly disturbing to know that something like this has happened, where thousands and thousands of people of the Hindu faith had to go through such an atrocious act. Are we going to just sit down and let it happen? Is there not going to be justice for that? Are people not going to be penalized for that? How can you do something like this? Imagine if at some point of time this was supposed to have done to, say, an Islamic mosque or something of that nature, where instead of animal fat, you use pork fat or something. You don't do things like this. But they are being done in India in order to break the Hindus, to tell the Hindus that you don't matter. And that is why it is important for every Bharatiya to understand the geopolitical games that are being played in India.
Next question, please. Ananda Gopal and Kidambi wants to know, Iyerji, I think this is for you, Savio. Thanks for the discussions on Sri Lankan elections. I understand Dissanayake has said if he wins this election, Ambani and Adani will be asked to vacate Sri Lanka. Is this true?
Yes, that's correct. He's made that statement. He's got a Rahul Gandhi syndrome. Rahul Gandhi also targets Adani and Ambani, so Dissanayake also has decided to take a leaf out of Rahul Gandhi's book and target Adani and Ambani.
Personally speaking, viewers, I may have differences in opinion about the way they conduct their corporate structure, funding, the funny ways in which they invest amongst themselves. But when it comes to execution, there is no one in the same level as Adani and Ambani. The way they execute things, look at how Jio has permeated. You can question their tactics, that they try to drive others out by lowering the price and so on and so forth. For that, there are regulatory bodies that can make sure that there is competition is free and fair. But execution-wise, you can't doubt them. I make fun of whatever their garish display of wealth. I make fun of that. But in terms of execution, they are very, very good. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you so much, Savio. This is something that you agreed at a very short notice. Viewers, we are really literally flying by the seat of the pants. Everyone's busy, so whenever we can squeeze time in, we try to do our best. And first one, I think we are the only one so far who've actually taken a look at the Sri Lankan elections. They go to polls tomorrow. All the best to everybody. May democracy win. Thank you, Savio. If you want to add something to the conclusion, feel free, and then we'll call this thing.
Well, all I can do is pray for the people of Sri Lanka that they do not fall prey to the Sino-Wahhabi left lobby, because that's going to take Sri Lanka back by another 10, 15 years. And it's going to be sad. It's going to be bad for us as India as well.
Thank you so much, Savio. Namaskar, viewers. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications.
God bless. Bye.